She was just another waitress, tired, broke, and fired in front of a room full of strangers. But as she walked out, heart pounding and dignity shattered, a man she'd never met stopped her cold. Not because of who she was, but because of the old pendant around her neck. What happened next would uncover a family secret, rewrite her past, and change her future in ways she never imagined. If you're new to the channel, make sure to subscribe, like the video, and tell us in the comments where you're watching from. We love hearing from you. Now let's jump into the story. It was a cloudy Tuesday morning in Queens, the kind where the sky hangs low and the city seems quieter than usual. Lena Moore, 25 years old, tied her worn apron around her waist for what felt like the 1,000th time. The coffee stains on it refused to come out no matter how many times she washed it. Her sneakers squeaked on the sticky floor of Rossi's grill, and her fingers were already sore from the early breakfast shift. But she didn't complain. She never did. Lena had 2 jobs, no roommates, and a long list of worries. Rent was due. In 5 days, her electricity bill had a red stamp on it, and her second job at the pharmacy left her just enough time to sleep 5 hours a night. Still, she showed up, because that's what you do when you've got no one else to lean on. Tucked beneath her shirt, Lena wore a small heart-shaped pendant. It was made of cheap silver and had scratches along the edges, but it was the only thing she had left from her mother, Camille, who had passed away when Lena was just 10. That little pendant sat over her heart like an anchor. On her worst days, she held it between her fingers and imagined her mother whispering that everything would be okay. By midday, the diner was buzzing. Orders flew in, coffee spilled, babies cried, and customers argued over toast being too burnt or not burnt enough. Lena moved quickly between tables, her tired smile glued in place. That was the job. Serve, smile, survive. Then he walked in. Man in a sharp gray suit, slick hair, and an impatient scowl took a seat in her section. The kind of man who looked like he never waited for anything. He snapped his fingers when she didn't come fast enough and ordered a turkey sandwich with "no mayo." Lena jotted it down, nodded politely, and rushed to the kitchen. 5 minutes later, she placed the plate in front of him. He stared at it for a second, then looked up sharply. "I said no mayo. Are you even listening?" "I'm really sorry." "Sir?" Lena said quickly. "Let me fix that for you." Before she could finish, Mr. Delvin, the manager, appeared behind the counter, arms crossed, his eyebrows drawn in tight. "Lena, this is the 3rd complaint today." "I'm just tired. I'm doing my best," she said softly, her throat tightening. "I had a double shift last night and I don't need excuses, I need results." He cut her off. "We're done here." "What?" "Your last paycheck is on the counter. Clean out your things. Just like that. No second chances. No understanding." Lena stood frozen for a moment, her hands trembling. The diner had gone quiet, at least in her ears. Her face burned with embarrassment as she untied her apron and picked up her coat from the hook by the back door. She didn't cry. Not yet. She couldn't let them see. As she turned to leave, the little pendant she wore slipped out from under her collar and swung into the light. It caught a small glimmer from the overhead bulb, just enough to shine. And right then, the door to the diner opened. A tall man in his early 50s walked in. He wore a charcoal-colored coat and carried a leather folder under his arm. His presence was calm, steady. People seemed to notice him without knowing why. He was looking around, maybe for a table, maybe for someone. But when his eyes landed on Lena, they didn't stop at her face. They locked onto the pendant. He froze. His entire body went still, like the wind had been knocked out of him. "Excuse me," he said, stepping forward slowly. His voice was warm but uncertain, like he didn't trust what he was seeing. "That necklace. Where did you get it?" Lena blinked. Of all the things that could have happened that day, a stranger asking about her pendant wasn't one she saw coming. "It was my mother's," she replied. "She gave it to me before she died." The man swallowed hard, his lips pressing together. "What was her name?" Lena hesitated, unsure what this was about. Camille Moore. The man's face lost all color. He took a step back and whispered, almost too softly to hear, "That was my sister." The room seemed to spin. Lena stared at him, confused, stunned. "What?" "I'm Julian," he said, his voice breaking slightly. "Julian Hart. Camille. Camille was my sister. I haven't seen her in over 20 years. I didn't know she had a daughter." Lena couldn't find the words. Her mind was racing too fast. In one moment, she had been fired, humiliated, and forgotten. And now, this stranger was saying he was her family. The man looked at her like he was seeing someone he had lost long ago. His eyes were wet. "I've been searching for her for a long time. And now, I find you." Lena pressed her hand to the pendant, suddenly aware of its weight. In a whole new way, she didn't know what to say. She didn't know what to feel. But she knew one thing for sure. This was no longer just an ordinary day. This was the day everything changed. Lena sat across from Julian Hart at a quiet cafe just 2 blocks from the diner. She hadn't spoken much since they left. Her hands were still shaking slightly, wrapped around a paper cup of chamomile tea that she hadn't touched. Julian, the man who claimed to be her mother's brother, sat calmly, his expression full of emotion. He didn't seem like someone who lied. He seemed like someone who had been carrying a secret for a long, long time. "I still can't believe it," he said, his voice soft. "I was just stopping by the diner before a meeting. Something simple, quick. I wasn't expecting this." Lena nodded, though she was still trying to understand what this even was. "You really knew my mom?" she finally asked. Julian gave a sad smile. "I didn't just know her. I grew up with her. Camille was my little sister, smart, stubborn, full of heart." He looked away for a moment. "We had a fight when we were young. I chose business. She chose a quiet life. I thought she was throwing her future away. She thought I was losing my soul chasing money." "And you never talked after that?" Lena asked. "No," Julian said. "I regret that more than anything." There was a pause. Lena studied him. His suit, his polished watch, the careful way he spoke. He looked like someone who belonged in boardrooms, not diners. And yet something about him reminded her of herself. Or maybe reminded her of her mother. "She died when I was 10, Lena said quietly. "We didn't have any other family. Or, I thought we didn't." Julian looked heartbroken. I didn't know she had a daughter." They sat in silence for a while. The city moved outside the window. People rushing, taxis honking, life continuing like nothing had changed. But everything had changed. "I know this is a lot," Julian said. "And I don't expect anything. But I'd like to get to know you if you'll let me. I've missed out on so much already." Lena didn't answer right away. Her mind flashed through the events of the morning, the angry customer, the firing, the shame. And now this man offering kindness, offering family. It didn't feel real. "Why now?" she finally asked. "I've been trying to make things right," Julian said. "Not just with Camille, but with myself. I've spent years building a life, a company, success. But none of it mattered when I thought my family was gone. Then I started digging, looking for Camille. I hired people to help. I was too late to find her, but then I saw you." He pulled out a small photo from his wallet. It was worn at the edges. It showed a younger Camille, smiling in a field of sunflowers. Lena felt her breath catch. "That was taken when she was 20, Julian said. "She sent it to me the year we stopped talking. I kept it all this time." Lena stared at the picture. The woman in it looked just like the one from her childhood memories. Same eyes, same smile. "I don't know what to say," she whispered. "You don't have to say anything," Julian said gently. "I'm not here to pressure you. I just want to be someone you can call if you need anything." Lena looked out the window, the weight of everything pressed on her shoulders. But then she felt the pendant around her neck again, resting just over her heart. She wrapped her fingers around it. "What if I came to visit sometime?" she asked. Julian looked surprised, but hopeful. "Of course, any time. I live in Manhattan. You can stay with me for a while if you'd like, just until you figure out what's next." Lena smiled, small but real. "Okay, just for a little while." That night, Lena packed a small bag, just a few clothes, a notebook, and the photo Julian had given her. She left a note for her landlord saying she'd be gone for a few days, maybe more. She didn't know what was waiting for her in Manhattan, but she knew what she was leaving behind. When Julian's driver arrived the next morning, she climbed into the car with nerves buzzing in her chest. The ride to Manhattan was quiet. She watched the city blur past the window, tall buildings rising like giants. She felt like a tiny part of something bigger, something new. The car pulled up to a quiet street lined with trees and townhouses. Julian was waiting outside one of them. It was elegant, but not flashy. Warm, even. He opened the door for her himself. "Welcome, home," he said. Lena stepped inside, not knowing how long she'd stay or where this would lead. But in that moment, something deep inside her softened. After years of fighting to survive alone, maybe she didn't have to anymore. Not today. Not anymore. Lena had never seen ceilings that high or windows that wide. The townhouse in Manhattan felt like a different universe compared to her old apartment above the laundromat in Queens. There was no noise from the street, no leaky faucet dripping at 2 a.m. Just peace, clean floors, a bed that didn't squeak. It felt unreal, like she'd walked into someone else's life. She'd only planned to stay for a few days, but days turned into a week and then another. Julian didn't rush her. Instead, he made space for her. He introduced her to his housekeeper, showed her where the extra towels were, and invited her to join him for dinner most evenings. And for the first time in years, Lena had time. Time to breathe. Time to think. Time to dream. One evening, over pasta and garlic bread, Julian asked her, "Have you ever thought about going back to school?" Lena blinked. "Honestly, I didn't think that was even an option." "You're smart. I can see it. You have a lot to say," he said with a small smile. "Your mother was the same. She used to write poems in the back of her notebooks." Lena felt her chest warm. She hadn't known that about her mother. It was like discovering a piece of her she'd never met. A week later, Julian handed her a brochure from a nearby college. "They have a great writing program," he said. "No pressure. Just think about it." She did more than think about it. She applied, and to her shock, she got in. Her first day on campus was nerve-wracking. Everyone looked younger, more confident, like they'd known their place in the world all along. Lena felt like a stranger in borrowed shoes, but she pushed through. She took notes. She raised her hand. She stayed up late working on her first writing assignment. In one of her classes, she met Ellie, a cheerful student with a messy bun and big dreams of becoming a journalist. They bonded over their love of stories and shared snacks between lectures. Still, Lena couldn't shake a certain unease. Even as her life moved forward, something kept pulling her back. It was a quiet fear that maybe she didn't belong, that at any moment someone would tap her on the shoulder and say, "This isn't for you, go back." That fear grew louder when she met Marielle, Julian's longtime business partner. Marielle was sharp, always in heels, always watching. They met at a charity dinner Julian brought Lena to. Marielle offered a handshake, then a long look. "So you're Camille's daughter," she said, as if testing the words. Lena smiled politely. "Yes. And what are your plans, Lena?" "I'm starting college, studying writing." Marielle nodded slowly. "Interesting. It wasn't unkind, but it wasn't warm either." Lena could feel the doubt in her tone, as if Marielle was waiting for her to slip. Later that night, when Julian stepped away to talk to someone, Marielle leaned closer. "He's been hurt before," she said, quietly, by people who pretended to be family. I hope you're not like them. Lena stiffened but kept her voice calm. I'm not pretending. I didn't ask for this. I'm just trying to make something of my life. Marielle studied her, then gave a short nod. Good. Prove it. As weeks passed, Lena worked harder. She poured herself into her classes, staying up late writing essays and stories from her past. Stories about waitressing, struggling, being invisible in a loud city. One piece about working-class women in New York got shared by a student group, then picked up by a local blog. Suddenly, people noticed her. Her name showed up in emails and class discussions. Professors praised her work. Even Ellie cried after reading one of her short stories. You made me feel seen, she'd said. For the first time, Lena felt seen too. Still, old habits were hard to shake. On weekends, she'd sneak out early and take the subway back to Queens. She'd walk past Rossi's grill, peeking through the windows to see who was working. One rainy Saturday, she saw Jada, the waitress who'd taken her old shifts. Jada spotted her through the glass and waved her inside. The diner hadn't changed. Same chipped coffee mugs. Same bell above the door. Jada gave her a quick hug. That envelope you left, it helped more than you know. A couple of us were close to losing our apartments. That check, it saved us. Lena felt a lump in her throat. She hadn't expected thanks. She just wanted to give back, even if just a little. Even Mr. Delvin, the manager who fired her, looked up from the counter. He gave a small nod. Not quite an apology, but not nothing. Back in Manhattan that evening, Julian was waiting at the front door. Good visit? He asked. Lena nodded. Yeah. It felt different. Like I wasn't part of it anymore, but also, like I'll never forget it. Julian smiled. That's how you know you're growing. That night, Lena sat by her window, looking out at the city lights. Her pendant rested against her chest, warm and steady. She was still afraid sometimes, afraid she didn't deserve any of this. But slowly, she was learning that her past didn't disqualify her. It gave her depth, gave her voice. And maybe, just maybe, it was leading her to something even bigger than she ever imagined. Lena's fingers hovered over her laptop keys. Outside the window, Central Park was painted with gold and orange leaves, the kind that made the whole city feel like it was holding its breath. Inside, the apartment was quiet, except for the soft ticking of the clock and the steady hum of her thoughts. She was writing a story. Not fiction this time. This one was real. Her real life. The long nights, the cold diner floors, the pendant that once felt like the only piece of her past. She poured it all onto the page. When she finished, she hit send. The story, titled The Girl No One Saw, was going to be published in the college magazine. She didn't think much of it at the time, but within a week, the article had been shared hundreds of times. By the end of the month, thousands. People started reaching out. Students, readers, even a reporter from a local news station. They all said the same thing. Your story made me feel seen. It was overwhelming but beautiful. Lena wasn't used to being noticed, let alone celebrated, and yet something inside her had shifted. She was no longer hiding behind a tray of coffee, cups. She was using her voice, and people were listening. Then one afternoon, she got a message from Julian. Can you come to the office? Something important to discuss. Her stomach flipped. Old fears returned, quick and sharp. What if this was it? What if he'd changed his mind? But when she walked into his office, Julian didn't look upset. He looked proud. He stood beside Marielle, who gave Lena a nod and an approving smile. There was also a man in a suit holding a leather folder, a lawyer perhaps. Julian came forward, took Lena's hands gently in his. I've been thinking a lot about the future, about your future, and about your mother's memory. Lena listened closely. I want to start a foundation, he said, in your mother's name, the Camille Moore Fund, to support young women with talent and heart, but no support system. Girls like you. Girls like Camille. Lena blinked. unsure what to say. That's my incredible, Julian continued. And I want you to help lead it. To be the face of it. To decide where the money goes, who gets a chance. Lena looked at Marielle, who gave her an encouraging nod. He's serious, she said. Lena sat down, her heart racing. Why me? Because you've lived it, Julian said. And because you've already started changing lives. You know what it means to struggle, and you know what it means to rise. She didn't cry, not then, but her chest felt tight in the best kind of way. She said yes, without hesitation. A few weeks later, Lena returned to Rossi's Grill. She didn't wear designer clothes. No flashy purse, just her old jacket and a soft scarf Julian had bought her in a small bookstore near the university. The pendant still hung from her neck, steady and bright. Inside, things looked the same. The same bell above the door. The same smell of fried eggs and burnt toast. Jada was at the counter. She saw Lena and smiled wide. You came back. I told you I would, Lena said. She walked over to Jada and handed her an envelope. What's this? Jada asked. Something. For the staff, Lena said. A thank you. A reminder that someone sees you. Jada opened it and gasped. Inside was a check with 5 zeros, enough to cover rent for every worker in the diner for a few months, maybe more. Even Mr. Delvin stepped out from the back, blinking in disbelief. He didn't say much, just gave a quiet nod. That was enough. Outside, Julian was waiting by the car. When Lena climbed in, he gave her a proud smile. You handled that with grace, he said. Lena laughed. I didn't go in there for revenge. I know, he said. You went in as someone who remembers. She looked out the window as the diner faded behind them. Her fingers touched the pendant. The silver was warm from the sun. In the months that followed, Lena's world kept expanding. The foundation launched with a beautiful ceremony. Students lined up to apply. Lena met girls from all over the city, some scared, some full of hope, all of them looking for a chance. She saw herself in each of them. She kept writing too. One of her stories was picked up by a national magazine. Her college professors invited her to speak at events. Sometimes she still found it hard to believe, but she didn't run from it anymore. One rainy afternoon, she sat with Julian in the study. He showed her an old notebook, Camille's. I kept it all these years, he said. I thought it might help you feel close to her. Lena opened the notebook and found page after page of poems, lists, and little sketches. At the very back, there was one sentence written in faded ink. Let her remember who she is even when the world forgets. Lena closed the book and smiled. She didn't forget me. Not really. Julian reached over and took her hand. No, and neither will I. Lena's story didn't end with a mansion or a headline. It didn't even end with a happily ever after, but it continued with purpose, with heart, with a name, Camille Moore, that would help others find their own voice. And that, she thought, was a name worth remembering.